And go ahead and roll on camera. We're good? Mm-hmm. Cool. I think we're rolling on everything. If not, so obviously the set looks a little bit different than usual because of what's going on in the world right now with coronavirus, and because where I live specifically in Southern California, there is currently a stay-at-home order going on, so I am shooting out of my apartment for now. Truth be told, I think there is a bit of a gray area for media. I think I can actually go in the office, but to do my part to make sure that the team is safe, that no one gets sick, and we're not spreading anything around if anyone does currently carry it, we're gonna be doing stuff out of here for the time being. And this really got me thinking about the situation a lot of people are in, where if you're cooped up at home and you're running out of things to do, I want to talk about some of my favorite games you can grab on the Switch right now that take a lot of time to play, either because they are extremely replayable, so you can just do it again and again and again, or because just a single playthrough takes that much time. Obviously, there are a lot of great first-party Nintendo games that fit for this, like Legend of Zelda, Mario Odyssey, Mario Maker, Fire Emblem, Smash Brothers, so on and so forth. I figure you guys kind of already know about some of those, so I want to focus more on some other titles, but one Nintendo game I think I absolutely have to talk about because its timing is just way too perfect right now is, of course, Animal Crossing. Truth be told, I've never been the biggest Animal Crossing fan. I like the games, but they've just never been huge for me. But I don't know if it's just because of the timing right now or if something in my own mindset has changed since this new one came out, but I am spending so much time on it, and it honestly has worked out so well that the game got pushed back when it did, because this release window it's now having, it makes it the perfect arrival to help kill some of your boredom while you're home. The simple, calm nature of the game makes it a great distraction, and if you're not relying on speeding up your Switch's time clock to advance events and jump forward into the future, it's the kind of game where you can just soak in a couple hours every day, whether you want to try and expand your town in any ways you're currently able to, you want to make some money by catching some fish and some bugs, whatever, visiting friends' islands, customizing stuff. It's not really a game with any one specific goal you have to complete. Instead, you can just take your time and do whatever you really want to do within the confines of it. This style of gameplay just makes it a great relaxing escape that you can just jump into every now and then when you want. Now don't get me wrong, I of course also enjoy high action crazy stuff. I'm playing a lot of Doom at the same time right now, which is a very fitting dual release that came out. But at the end of the day, just something about that kind of relaxing tone that Animal Crossing has made me soak a lot more time into it right now. Which is honestly crazy, because if you asked me a week ago which of these two games I'd be playing a lot more of, I would have said Doom, but nope, I'm catching beetles and getting really, really angry at sea bass, because they are everywhere. I feel like this one is a given for a lot of you guys, but really, if you haven't checked it out yet, if you haven't picked it up yet, download it digitally, play it. I think it's one of the best things you can pick up right now, especially for this current situation if you're staying at home a lot, because it's gonna let you get a lot of time in across the entire upcoming month, 2 months, however long all this crazy stuff goes down, and it's just that relaxing experience that's nice to have on hand. Now let's completely change pace and focus on an entirely different kind of game with Dragon's Dogma. Now if you're not familiar with this title, it's actually a port of a game that was originally released on PS3 and 360, and it's very much a title that I think didn't get the love it deserved. It's not a game that entirely missed out. There are a lot of people I know who picked it up and played it, but I don't think it got nearly the wide exposure it really deserves, and now is a great time to take a chance on it. Coming from Capcom, Dragon's Dogma is an action RPG hybrid that involves you controlling your own made character and a party of adventurers that you get to make one of them, the other ones are borrowed from other players. It's not really multiplayer, but you get to share characters with other people. But the main focus is on having this really interesting combat system that blends elements from a lot of other popular games, whether it's having just straightforward action combat that is honestly similar to Devil May Cry in some ways, not with the same kind of crazy combos, but some individual attacks were definitely inspired by it, and more interestingly, Shadow of the Colossus, where you have the ability to climb on larger enemies in order to strike weak points that they have. This is one of the aspects of this game that I absolutely love, in that every class you can choose to play as feels like a different gameplay experience. Whether you're focusing on climbing on enemies, staying back with a bow, using magic, being a frontline tank, every class feels like its own unique play style, which differentiates the experience a lot and tailors it to what you like to do. The storytelling for the game is honestly a little weak. It's just in the backseat a little bit. There's not a lot of exposition given, but honestly, if you just focus on the raw gameplay of it and embrace the challenge and all the fun stuff behind it, it is an amazing experience. If you didn't get the chance to play it when it came out last generation, I highly recommend you give it a chance. And even if you did play it back then, honestly, now is a better time than ever to just dive back in and give it another shot. A single playthrough takes quite a while as it is, but because of how different each class handles, it's also worth playing a couple times, making new characters and just seeing how the experience changes. Now, I don't know how I didn't notice this when I was making this list earlier, but the next game on our list also starts with the word dragon, and is Dragon Quest XI for the Switch. Now, this is another port of a game. It originally came out on PS4 previously, but it is a much more recent title compared to Dragon's Dogma. If you haven't tried any of the Dragon Quest games before, they're old school style RPGs that in many ways didn't really embrace changing times like some other series did, whereas Final Fantasy tried to become very cinematic and big in scope and everything. Dragon Quest has a very just low-key, comfortable feeling to it. This isn't to say that the game's story doesn't have epic moments or even its little bits of darkness, but there's a general tone to it at all times that just makes it feel like a very optimistic adventure, and just more than anything, like I said earlier, comfortable. That's just the best word I can really use for it. It's this combination of the visuals, the music, and the storytelling that really makes the game hook you, but honestly, the core combat and gameplay in it is fantastic as well. It uses that kind of old school style RPG setup where you have your team adventurers and you pick which ones you want to have in your active party, but they're all customizable to an extent where they all have their own specific playstyle, but you can nudge them in certain directions depending on what you prefer. When it originally came out back on the PS4, Dragon Quest XI was already an extremely long game, and with the Switch port, there's even more content. Just doing the storyline alone will take many, many hours, but on top of that, if you're a completionist and you want to get a lot of the game's hidden medals and different achievements that are built into it, it's a very, very long investment. So if you're looking to kill a lot of time, it's a really good choice. Now, if you're not interested in the idea of playing a game that is this huge sweeping adventure that's several hours in and you prefer something that's more digestible, smaller, and repeatable, there's a lot of great roguelikes on the Switch, and one of my favorites is Dead Cells. If you're not familiar with the term, roguelikes are a genre of game which is focused on doing the same kind of run over and over and over again, but each time you do it, you can slowly unlock new abilities and upgrades and power-ups that make next runs easier and easier. And Dead Cells takes this formula and combines it with one of my other favorite genres, Metroidvanias, where it has this giant sweeping castle that randomizes every time you die, and you have to re-explore it each time, finding the different bosses, taking down different challenges, and unlocking new and stronger abilities to give yourself a better edge each and every time. This makes Dead Cells a very long-term investment depending on how good you are at playing the game, and also just how interested you are in unlocking everything it has to offer. If you just want to keep making runs over and over and over again, it supplies you with that experience, giving you something that you can just tackle whenever you have a spare moment, or you just need a distraction from whatever else you're currently playing or doing. Honestly, in general, roguelikes are just a great idea as far as types of games to absorb yourself into, and Dead Cells is one of the best of them available on the Switch as of right now. Also, real quick, even though it's not a Switch game yet, I do want to take this moment to shout out my favorite actual roguelike game, which is currently only on PC, Hades. It's the newest game from Supergiant Games. It's a roguelike with storytelling elements. It's this kind of dungeon crawler feel. It's so good. It's in early access right now, so if you do play on PC, I definitely recommend checking out, and hopefully once the game fully releases, Switch will be one of the platforms that it comes to. Another retro-inspired game I want to talk about that is a modern classic that has just been building up year after year and finally got completed late 2019 is Shovel Knight Treasure Trove. Shovel Knight is honestly one of my flat-out most favorite games of all time as it now stands. It is such a great balance and mixture of all the things that made 2D platformers really fun to me, while at the same time embracing new ideas and trying new things that just ends up making it this whole new feeling experience. Now, I loved it back when it was just simply Shovel Knight, but as the years have gone on, they've added more and more to the Treasure Trove, where it's now not one, but actually 4 different games all in one that all feel different, each one featuring a different protagonist that has different skills and abilities, and while a lot of the level design may appear similar at first, the way you traverse everything and overcome challenges is completely different for each one. Playing through each of these campaigns in total will take a little bit of time, but if you're the kind of person who's a completionist and wants to get every little nook and cranny and find all the collectibles, there is a lot more time investment going on here, and just more stuff to do, thanks to the 4th game, King of Cards, adding a card minigame that you can now do local multiplayer with, and also the addition of Shovel Knight Showdown, which is their own kind of version of basically kind of Super Smash Bros., but more minigamey. It's really fun. Honestly, I recommend checking it out. So those are 5 of my favorite games you can play on the Switch right now that take quite a bit of time to play through. But just to add on to that, something else that I think is really worth looking into right now is the fact that the Switch is a beast when it comes to ports. There are so many ports of amazing retro and classic games that if you haven't gotten a chance to play them before, now's your shot. Whether you want to play through Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10, or 12, all of which are now on the Switch, or the various retro collections that exist for stuff like Mega Man, Castlevania, Collection of Mana. All these games contain individual retro titles which on their own might not necessarily be a long playthrough, but if you want to play through every single one of them, that definitely adds up. Everyone who's choosing to stay at home right now, I know it can get really boring and repetitive, but it is super important that we try to flatten this curve and not let a lot more people get sick because so many have already been infected. So really, pick up some of these games, soak some time into them, have fun, wash your hands. I'll see you guys later with another video. Does this setup work? I don't know. Maybe I'll try another one.